what do we take from all this, as citizens, as disaster planners, and first responders? Here's the first lesson. It's bigger than you think.
Oh, I think that our preparations missed the worst case scenario. The true worst case scenario is that what happened in the campfire. It moved so quickly.
Survivor guilt is a real thing, and I felt bad that I had a home to go to. I felt horrible that my dog was at home waiting for me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's hard for me to explain because it's very personal. What each one of us went through, we took it personally in a different way. And I can talk to other people who went through it and we get it. We get how each other feels. But to try to explain it to someone from out of the area who didn't live through it, it's almost impossible. And I've had some other groups say, well, we're doing an exercise. What can you tell us about, what are some things we should include? And it's like, okay, we have it wipe out everything at 70 miles an hour and then have it happen when there's 3 major holidays in the mix. And because that adds another whole nother level of emotional stress.
Think much larger than you've ever thought before, because it's easy for us to sit around and say, well, I don't know why you didn't think of that. It's easy to Monday morning quarterback. But I can tell you, I've been doing this for 36 years and there's a lot of people around me that have had equal or more time, and none of us thought that would happen.
This idea came up over and over in these interviews and gets at the heart of disaster planning. If we could anticipate and prepare for every possible disaster, we could predict the future. But we can't. By their nature, disasters surprise and overwhelm. Plans failing to anticipate every detail is not a symptom of their failure, but the most common outcome of chaos. But this does not mean plans are useless. As we've seen, they help improvising and save lives immensely, even when they're imperfect. And a useful rule of thumb did emerge. When you try to imagine the worst case in your area, earthquake, tornado, disease, anything, imagine the worst you can, then make it 10 times bigger and 10 times faster.
It's not conceivable, I think, to think about some of those things because we've never experienced them before to that magnitude. It's that 1% or 1/2 of 1% anomaly that occurred. All of the worst factors being in alignment that particular day. But that said, for my peers across wherever you are, we have to think about what would happen if we had a Katrina and it flooded the entire New Orleans area. What would happen if we had a fire and it didn't just glance across Paradise but burned through Paradise? Or an earthquake that destroyed the Los Angeles basin. Those are all things that we know are at risk, but it's hard to get your mind around that magnitude.
Communication is the key, but in our modern world, the most advanced communication systems can also be the most fragile. Literally, one of the first things destroyed by the campfire was the phone, internet, and cable lines serving the Ridge and the Oroville EOC.
And I personally got a lot of phone calls from other educators I know, and they're like, what can we do? My first is communication. I think always in natural disaster, communication is the key. Like I said, unfortunately in the campfire, the rate of spread of the fire brought down cell towers, and so it really destroyed major communication lines. So that as a result, there was very little information that was able to be sent out to the public.
And we learned this early on, not just the campfire, but from previous fires, that it's not just one method of notifying people that's going to be the way to go. We have to have a lot of tools in our tool belt, whether it's door to door, if it's sirens, if it's the phone calls, the emergency mass notification system, if it's loudspeaker, whether it's aircraft going through with a loudspeaker. We need more than just one notification system, which I believe we do now, and we're working to find more. What else is out there?
I kind of revert back to the phrase that government can't do it alone. It takes every one of us.
This might be the most important message we have for you. Even as we prepare, most of us have a lingering feeling when a catastrophe strikes, someone will be there to help. If we call 911, surely someone will come. But this is the blunt truth. Sometimes no one is coming. I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this to help. In disasters, there is a numbers problem no civilization has ever solved.
We're going to have an incident that you will not get a fire truck at your house to help you. You're going to have to help yourself, and you need to be prepared for it. We're going to try to help you, but we're going to run out of resources, and they're going to take a long time for them to come from Sacramento and Southern California. Law enforcement's not going to have enough officers. You need to understand and prepare your family for the fact of we're going to be impacted by a terrible event, and you are going to have to take care of yourself. And calling 911 is an option, but there's a good chance nobody's going to show up to help you just because of the magnitude of the incident.
It's this. Let's say a disaster hits the Paradise Ridge. Then, let's assume every CAL FIRE engine and crew rush in to help, along with everyone from the Sheriff's Department. Then, let's add the 20 personnel from the Paradise Police, and a dozen ambulance crews, and every CHP officer in the county. Now, let's call out every fire engine in nearby Chico and Orville, and everyone in the Chico and Orville police departments. Being generous, that's 1,000 people. On the day of the campfire, over 52,000 people lived on the Paradise Ridge. Even with every single first responder in the county working at the top of their proficiency, there are tens of thousands who will need to self-evacuate without the aid of anyone. This is not because government cuts corners on disaster preparedness. It's not because first responders are not willing to risk their lives to save the day. It's because there are far more people than any town, city, or county can handle.
It takes every citizen out there to recognize the risk that they live in, to be prepared to the degree that they can for that risk, to have insurance so that if that risk comes to bear, that at least they have insurance to fall back to have a vehicle that's operational or some means to rely on somebody else, a reliability that they know is there. To have an emergency plan, individuals have to be in a position to help themselves. Public safety officials will do all that they can, but it's just, there's too many people on a broad scale emergency developing that rapidly to be able there to help everybody.
I think it's really crucial for people to know that Calvary's not going to come and get you, that you have to take your life, your family, and preparation into your own hands. And you have to prepare for yourself. Don't sit with your car with 1/4 of a tank of fuel in it. Always have fuel in your car. Always have a go bag ready. And when you think that you might need to evacuate, leave. Don't wait for someone to tell you to go. It's better to be safe than sorry. And if you are a person who doesn't have a vehicle, doesn't drive anymore, know that you've got to have someone you can call. Maybe that's your next door neighbor. Hopefully it is someone who's so close to you that they can get you in a vehicle to get out. But you have to be prepared for yourself.
Which is why it comes back to individuals having to be develop their own evacuation plan, their own safety plan within the context of the broader plan developed by public safety. And things like understanding your neighborhood and your area. And people would often go, well, we need you to tell us what our evacuation route is. And my response would often be, I don't necessarily know what your evacuation route is going to be because I don't necessarily know what threat you're going to be facing. In the case of a wildfire, we could designate a particular road as evacuation area, but as you saw, spot fires could develop that close that road off. And so you need to be prepared to get out of your neighborhood in an alternate route.
regionally, and we plan for potentially having to evacuate Paradise. What happens when people leave Paradise? They all go down the hill to Chico. Even those that are routed down Pence Road to Highway 70 ultimately come back to Chico. One of the things that we learned in our planning is that we need to look more regional. We can't just look at the city of Chico because they that city became gridlocked at obviously during the Camp Fire. We need to look about, hey, we can't let people route back to Chico, for instance. If they're going down this way, we need to route them to Marysville, to Yuba City, to Sacramento even. We need to think more broadly and more regionally about the magnitude of an incident and what those downstream impacts will be, if you will. And that would be my biggest suggestion to my colleagues across the country, to local governments, and to citizens. Be prepared. It's about all of us being prepared, not just groups of us.
And I think we have preached quite well preparedness. And I think everybody focuses on what they can do for their house and evacuation, but I think people need to mentally prepare for an incident. Not only what happened that day that the residents were exposed to, that I don't think they were mentally prepared for, but the effects after the fire. The fact that the town has been destroyed, everybody's lives have been turned upside down, and it's not going back to normal anytime soon. And I don't think we've experienced anything on this magnitude where people can comprehend of it's years, if it even happens, of things going back to normal. And I don't think we're prepared emotionally and mentally for the impacts of an entire community being destroyed. How you prepare for that, I don't know. And how do you tell the civilians that this could happen, that your life will never be the same? You may never be able to go back to your home. Your school may never open back up. Every fire we've had before, done, we rebuild, we kind of go back to normal. Even on the major wildland fires we had in the last couple of years, things kind of get back to normal because they're still part of a community there. In this case, as you know, you live there, things aren't back to normal yet. And I don't see them getting back to normal for a long time. It'd be easy for me to sit here and tell other fire leaders, hey, prepare. But I don't think anybody needs to be told that, right? I think we all know that. What we need to start educating people on is the post-disaster is difficult. And you need to start preparing for the post-disaster of, and I keep bringing this up, it'd be no different than that major earthquake that hit San Francisco. We all know that it could come, and we all know it's going to be devastating. But I think truly people think that, okay, it hits, my house gets destroyed, 6 months later, we're right back in driving to work. It's not the case.
Many of these lessons are to get people through the danger of disaster. But what about when the danger has passed? Have you thought about how you or your organization will provide normal services when everyone, employees and the public, are dealing with disaster? If they've lost their homes and possessions, where will they stay? This part is for everyone to think about. Where will you get the clothes you need, the medicine, the personal goods? How will you continue to work? As an organization, how will your employees perform if they're now homeless? What allowances will you give personnel dealing with trauma, or who are pushed to leave the area by the economic and housing forces unleashed by the disaster? Part of disaster planning is the recovery, which could be anywhere from days to years. Recovery of operations, maintaining the norms that we can, is vital to give ourselves the sense that we can persevere through the worst.
But I don't know that we know the total impact yet. I think that's years to come.
There definitely is an awareness now that this could happen anywhere.
I see it driving through certain areas. Properties that I've known over the years to not be clean suddenly are clean. I hear people talking about it, where before it was that government telling us we should do something. Now people, it's a ground up push, make it safe to live in these beautiful places people want to live.
What will come out of this, at least my hope, is that people will be inspired to take personal responsibility for their own safety, that they won't rely upon someone else to develop an evacuation or safety plan for them.
We were fortunate that we didn't lose anybody on the evacuation day. We had 52 clients that we helped evacuate and the 250 employees. Out of the 250 employees, all but maybe 10 of them lost their homes. I can't stress disaster preparation enough. Kind of like muscle memory. I mean, if you do it over and over and over again, it gets to be a routine. Granted, once the spot fires happen, and the urgency of the situation, your heartbeat was racing a little more than just a drill. But it did give us an idea of what we needed to do.
So that is what we survivors of the campfire can fit into this program. I know these preparations saved me, they saved Bob, and tens of thousands more. After the pain and struggle of our experience, I can only hope that you can use these lessons and add to them for you, your friends, family, colleagues, and citizens. You may feel comfortable now, thinking that you are never really going to have to deal with all this. But take it from me, now is the time to prepare. The price is too high to ignore.